press record? You think I would know how to do that?
It's down on the bottom on Zoom, but
Oh
you have
yeah,
to
it's
hover
right there.
to come up.
All right, we'll do both just to be safe. Okay, so we're good to go. And we're talking about how not to get ripped off in the publishing space,
Yeah.
which is a real problem. And I mean, I've been ripped off. I think a lot of people have been ripped off. And Jacquelyn, oh, we got some hands being raised in the background. Yeah. Jacquelyn, why are we getting ripped off in the publishing space?
Well, why we're getting ripped off is that, we're so excited about our work and we really, really want to get it published. And there are always going to be people out there who want to take advantage of people who are naive and in love with their work. But before I get too far into it, let me say that I think the self-publishing and pay-to-publish model of publishing are valid, legitimate ways to get your book out there. And I know that because I write a lot of articles and I put them out on social media and on Medium, and there's always somebody who's going to comment and say, oh, if you have to pay to get your book published, you're dealing with a vanity press, and and it's wrong, and you should always go traditional, and blah 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 blah. Well, there's a whole lot of really good books that would never have made it in the market if it, well, I mean, I don't know if y'all remember 50 Shades of Grey, which it not my cup of tea, but it's a runaway bestseller, turned into a series, turned into movies. It started out as a self-published ebook. So a lot of really, really, really good material is being published by people who are paying to get their work published. So it is a valid path to publishing. The thing is, as I already said, when you have people who are really excited and eager to get their book published, a lot of their common sense flies out the window because somebody's telling them, we're going to publish your book and you're going to be a published author. And, I had a friend call me last year, and friend slash colleague slash client. And she said, this company wants to publish my book. And I'm like, I didn't know you were writing a book. She said, well, he said to me, you need to write a book and we're going to publish it. And he pressured her on a deadline and getting it done. But in all of this conversation, I said, how much is this going to cost you? And the line went dead. I mean, she's like, cost me? And I said, I know this guy's company. People pay him to publish their books. How much is he going to charge you to do this? Well, he hadn't said anything about that. He had her so jazzed up about the magazine article, and she was going to be on the cover, and all of that. So there are so many companies out there. Another thing to remember about the hybrid publishers in particular is, and those are the publishers that they function largely like a traditional publisher, except you as the author, you pay for all of the services. And then when you think about that, they have no skin in the game. It is a traditional publisher that pays you in advance and they're absorbing all the costs. They got skin in the game. You as a self-publisher, you've got skin in the game. The hybrid publisher who has made all of the money that they need to make by charging you for editing and production and all of the things that they charge for, they have no skin in the game. It does not matter to them how your book sells. Now, there are a few of them that are genuinely companies that operate with integrity and they care and they're going to do their best to help you put a good book out there. But again, you just have to remember they're paid, so it doesn't really matter. So what I wanted to talk about was what kind of questions, if you're looking at dealing with a hybrid publisher, and there's a valid reason to do that. I happen to do all of my own production, and that's what I do for clients, is their production, and writing, and I give them a turnkey product. But I have figured out the technology. I've put a lot of time into it. Most people, you don't want to have to buy InDesign and learn how to use it. That's complicated software. So to go to a hybrid publisher to get these services is, again, it's a valid, absolutely nothing wrong with path to publishing, but understand what you're paying for and understand what's a fair and reasonable cost. So I did, it started out as a blog and it kept getting longer and longer and longer. I was doing, it started out as the top 5 questions to ask the hybrid publisher, and then it turned into the top 10 and then the top 15. Anyway, then I made it an ebook because there's almost 50 questions. But I want to talk about some of those questions, and then we can open it up to your questions or comments or whatever. So one question to be sure and ask is, find out about the history of the company and who owns it. The whole business model of hybrid publishing is relatively young. So you're going to find a lot of young companies without good track records. It doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do business with them. But if the company is just a couple of years old, you want to know that going into it. And again, you may choose to let them handle your book. That's fine. But know what their history is. So when you ask also about the company, you want to know, is it part of a bigger corporation, or is it an independent? Most of the major traditional publishers have a hybrid publishing division. And then even within that division, they have different imprints in very much the same way that they do for their traditional publishing thing. So you want to ask questions and find out about that. Find out who the key people are in running the company. Now, you certainly want to know who are the people you're going to be dealing with, but who's the top dog? Who's the president? Who's the CEO? And Google these people. Check them out on LinkedIn, and do your traditional search way of put the company name in and then phrases like scam and ripoff, and see what people are saying. Now, you may find some negative stuff about a good company. This happens to good companies all the time. And especially in this business where somebody has come in with a book that doesn't have a market, and they paid a hybrid publisher, and the book didn't sell. They're upset because the book didn't sell. It really wasn't the publisher's fault. So look at all sides of your information, but do your homework on who the company is and ask them, who are you? Who are the key officers of the company? How long have you been in business? Where are you located? Do you have a physical office that I could come to? Now, if they're on the other side of the country, you're not going to, but do they have a physical office? And then do a Google Earth thing. Take a look at that office. Get a sense of who they really, really are. another story, a friend of mine years ago, and this actually was a young traditional publisher, and he wanted to publish a poetry book that she had done, and no advance. And she was like, but he's a good guy and he needs the business. So I'm going to help him out by doing this. Well, a year later, he disappeared. And she's saying to me, my book is on Amazon, but I'm not getting any royalties. I don't know if it's selling. What do I do? And I said, well, what does your contract say? Well, the contract didn't address that. What happens if he goes out of business? And, and I said, you gotta, the only thing I see here is you need to get a lawyer and figure out what you actually can do. So you really do need to know who you're dealing with. Another question to ask early on is, what is the total cost of the services? And they're going to dance around this. I know when people ask me, what is the total cost if they do it up front, I can't answer that, because until I know what the whole project is, I can't tell you that. So be reasonable here, but as you get into the negotiation, you want to know what the total cost is. You don't want them to do this, well, let's just get the editing underway. And we'll talk about the marketing later. And that you want to know, are you looking at, $5,000 or $50,000 total? Get them to at least ballpark it for you. You want to know what the total cost of their services are, and to break it down, because another thing that you want to think about doing with a hybrid publisher is, depending on their package and depending on who you may want to, ask if they'll offer their services on a cafeteria plan, because you might have somebody that you like working with as an editor. Are they going to try to charge you for editing if you're doing your own editing? You may have a cover designer that you like. You don't want to pay them for a cover design if you're going to handle it yourself. You may be able to do some of this work yourself. Actually, interior production is not that hard to do. You can get some really good templates, even in Word, and they're pretty simple to do. And you can pay under $100 for a Word template and spend a couple of days getting your book in it and formatted, where, a publisher is going to charge you $1,000, $1,500, maybe $2,000 to do that. So you want to know the total cost of their services, get it broken down, find out if you can buy the services in a cafeteria plan. You want to ask if you're required to buy a certain amount of author copies and how much those author copies are going to cost. You want to know how much your author copies are going to cost either way. But back to the first person that I told you about, with, who was so excited about the company approaching her about her book. They didn't charge anything in terms of editing, production, whatever, but their contract called for the authors to buy, it was like 5,000 copies of the book. And at something like $10, $12 a copy. That's a lot of money. So, you want to know, related also to this, what are your author copies going to cost? You want to ask who sets the retail price of your book, because if the publisher is going to set the price, you may or may not be able to sell the book at that price. And if you go back to remember they're paid. They don't have any skin in the game. If they overprice your book because they've overpriced the production, you're not going to sell it. And it doesn't really matter to them. I was doing a arts and crafts thing last year, and interestingly enough, there were 8 writers in the booth, and 2 of them were telling me stories of this very thing where they had used a hybrid publisher and their book was overpriced. And then one guy was saying, you know, they've priced my book at $18. It would sell at 14, but it isn't going to sell at 18. And there's nothing I can do about it because in the contract, it gives them the right to set the price. So, you know, I'm going to repeat that. You want to find out who sets the price, what kind of controls you have over that, how much, and your author copies, how much they're going to cost. Because, you know, here's another thing. They're probably going to make money on your author copies. That's okay. There's some work involved in that. But if your author copies cost $3 per copy to produce and you're paying 10, that's too much. You also want to ask how they handle distribution and what stores are going, you know, ask them what stores are going to carry your book. The reality is, and I think almost everybody on this call have been far enough in the book publishing thing that you know that no publisher can guarantee what bookstores are going to stock your book. So that's almost a trick question for them, because if they tell you, oh, you know, we're going to get your book into Barnes and Noble, well, they'll get it into Barnes and Noble online because anybody can do that, but they're not going to get it into every Barnes and Noble store. So, and if they promise that, you know, you're dealing with somebody who either the person you're dealing with doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're not ethical. And I would also ask to see the contract very early in your negotiation, and make sure that you read it and understand every single word that's in it. And if you don't understand it, you either need to make them explain it to you, you need to find somebody, a lawyer or somebody who can help you understand it. And don't fall for the, oh yeah, that's just boilerplate language and we never, you know, it never, the bottom line is if it's in the contract, it's enforceable. If it's not in the contract, it's not enforceable. So if they promise you something that you want, you make sure it's in the contract. And if there's something in the contract that you're not comfortable with, it's got to come out. So it's a good idea to get them to let you see that contract very early in the negotiation. And, you know, and you can tell them, you know, that you're not finished, that the details, you're still working out the details and all that, but you want to see what their standard contract looks like. And if they don't want to show it to you, then that's a red flag. Let's see, we've got, okay, a Canadian company called Tellwell that has a pricing menu. Don, are you saying for what things should cost?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I used them for my first book. I didn't use them this time. I did most of it myself, but this was just to give everybody an idea. If you take a look at their site, they have marketing packages. They have substantive editing costs, copy editing, proofreading, evaluation, marketing consulting. So they have a whole menu. You may be good at 5 of the items and you only want 1 or 2 from them. I found somebody to do my own editing the first time. I had them do up my website. I had some other consultations with them. So I didn't have a bad time with them, but I didn't want to spend all that money again myself. So that's why I did it locally. So.
Mhm. And I think, and this I think is more for relatively new authors, is if you're getting a really strong sales pitch, and promises of, you're going to be famous, you're going to sell lots of books and blah, blah, you need to really step back and think about, do a business plan for your book and think about how many copies of this book are you really, really, really likely to sell. And once you subtract out the relatives that you browbeat into buying, are you really likely to sell more than a few hundred copies? And if you're not, don't go spending, unless you're independently wealthy and can afford it, don't go spending $20,000-$30,000 getting a book published and on the market, because you can do so much of it yourself. And the distribution, and I think you all know this. You put it up on Amazon, you put it up on Ingram, and you put it up on Draft to Digital for that. And you have done pretty much all of the distribution that any hybrid publisher is going to do for you.
I have a question about why these hybrid publishers want you to buy your own books. Is that a red flag in itself, or is that a normal thing?
I think that's kind of a hangover from the way back days of vanity presses, where when we didn't have the kind of distribution centers or resources that we do now. And that's what they would do. It's like, we'll publish your book, you pay us X amount of dollars, and we're going to ship you 5,000 copies of your book, and then it's going to sit in the garage, and you're going to give them away as Christmas presents or something. And I think that's part of it. It's also kind of a way to disguise how much they're charging you. What your this particular company too. They required the authors to buy a minimum number of books, and then they would offer to warehouse and do the fulfillment for another charge.
Wow.
So watch these, the way things get snuck in to the, the bottom line, where your initial deal sounds really, really good. Did we just lose Jess?
No, she moved. Nope, she's there.
I'm here.
There she is. Okay.
Don, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just was going to say that no matter which publisher you're using today, even if we are fortunate enough to have one of the big five get in touch with us, we are basically, I'm afraid to say it, nobodies, that is going to still have to do a lot of the work that it takes to do as a self-publisher. We have to contact all these people regarding the media. They might contact the libraries on your behalf and have people that might be able to do that, but you're probably going to contact the libraries. You're going to be doing your Facebook. You're going to be doing all the work, because it's not like they're going to assign you a publicist unless we're going to be selling thousands and thousands of books. So part of that cost is going to come regardless of whether it's done by Don Lever's Hillsborough Publishing or Penguin Random House. Would you agree with that?
I do. And again, because I have ghostwritten books that are traditionally published by Dearborn, Simon and Schuster, and a couple of others. And the named authors, my clients, did almost all of the marketing. They hired marketing people. They did, the publishers just don't do it anymore. They used to, but they don't anymore. And, which is, to me, is a reason to look seriously at self-publishing or even hybrid publishing, because you actually make a higher percentage of your book sales. And if you're going to be doing all the work anyway, then yeah. Okay, I see questions.
We got Linda Berry.
Hi, thanks for the nice presentation. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I wanted to bring up something about the contract, and I think it's something, and I'm pretty sure it's probably on your 50 things to look for list, but a lot of them, they own the book. And that's in the contract. A lot of people don't understand that from the beginning. And then the big catch is that if you do another book, they have first dibs on it. And that's a real thing to look for in the contract, isn't it?
It is. Now, I don't know about, I know that traditional publishers are, it's pretty standard for traditional publishers to have the right of first refusal for your next book. I don't know about hybrid publishers if they tend to do that. You do.
Oh, they're doing it. Yes, they are. They're doing it.
The issue of copyright, and this can get tricky because you want to ask about the copyright and be prepared for them to say, "Oh, you own the copyright." Well, of course you do. You wrote it. You own the copyright, but your contract assigns that copyright to them. And yeah, this is something that's in my, because I couldn't go through all almost 50 questions tonight, but you want to find out what the details are of how you're assigning the copyright. It's standard that you have to assign the copyright to the publisher so that they can do their work. That's okay. But you need to understand, how can you get it back? If the book goes out of print, what's the definition of the book going out of print? And if you're not happy with what they're doing for you, can you get the rights to your book back? All of this needs to be in the contract. And that's why you need to, I'm going to repeat, read the contract, make sure you understand it. It's boring reading, but do it anyway. Judy?
I just wanted to say that I have a gal friend, and she won the Writer's Digest writing contest years ago, got an agent, got her book published. Then they asked her for money to do the ads in the papers. And anyway, it turned out disastrous for her, and she ended up buying her rights back to that book.
But she had to pay for them.
She had to pay for them. And the whole scam was enter this contest and you'll get the winner will get an agent and they'll get a book publishing contract. And that happened to her. And then it ended up, they started asking for money for her to, pay for the marketing thing. And she finally got fed up with them and ended up buying back her rights and became a New York Times bestseller on her book on her own, but it cost her.
Wow.
It saddens and infuriates me to see people get ripped off like this. And there's Kimber, it's like they're preying on your dreams. And we all put so much blood, sweat, and tears into our work. And when somebody says, oh, your book is fabulous and we can make you a best-selling author, you want to believe it, but don't. I mean,
Be wary.
Yeah, just be wary. Think about, if you're, it's like buying a house or a car or any big ticket purchase. Do your homework.
And what you said about just asking Google, like insert company name and then scam or lawsuit, see if anything comes up. That's a great idea because I did that the other day with, I don't want to say who, but I think like you probably know what company I'm thinking of. And there were just dozens or maybe hundreds of horrible like nightmare stories and lawsuits. And this is a huge company too. They have multiple imprints and they basically copy paste the same dreamy sales copy into their different imprints. And it's really professional. It's beautifully designed. So I think it's a great idea. Just Google it. Ask Google if it's a scam for sure.
Yeah.
I think another great thing to think about is everyone in here should be developing a writing community. Don't be afraid to reach out with people with more experience than you and saying, hey, look at this contract. Does this seem fishy to you?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Well, Jacquelyn, I know we only have you for so much time, and you have a book called How to Avoid Being Ripped Off by a Publisher. Is this the book with your 50 questions?
Yeah, this is the book, and it's $2.99 on Amazon. I also have a book, the Simple Facts About Self-Publishing, which is also on Amazon, and that was it kind of was born out of me seeing so many people that I genuinely cared about getting ripped off and spending, $10, $15, $20,000 on books that sold 200 copies. And, so.
And sorry, what was that one called?
The Simple Facts About Self-Publishing.
Okay, so we have How to Avoid Being Ripped Off by a Publisher. I just dropped it in the chat. I'll drop it in the Facebook group as well.
Thank you.
And I'll grab your other book too and throw that out. Thank you so much. This was eye-opening and kind of horrible to hear, like just some of the things that happen in the industry, but good to know not to be one of those people. Oh, do you have time for James? One more question?
Sure.
James, you can keep it short and sweet. You got to unmute.
There it is. Okay, no problem. Jacquelyn, I did have one quick question there. I really like the idea of asking the questions. Unfortunately, a guy who is a hybrid publisher also, I shared the story earlier with Jess in email, but instead of asking for like the next book, he asked for the rights to the next 3 books. Is that was a big red flag right there to me?
I think so. Yeah.
But it was early on, and I was saying, I have 3 more books in me.
Yeah. The other thing about that is just because it's in the contract and just because they're asking for it, you don't have to take that. You can say, I'd like to do business with you, but I don't like this term, that term, and that term, and see what they do. But remember, make them actually take it out of the contract. Right. None of this, we never enforce that. Well, no, if it's in the contract, it's enforceable.
Another thing that kind of bothered me is that, like we were doing all this communication originally through email, and when they were doing the big sales pitch, the emails were real long. But when I started asking the nasty questions, the emails got real short.
Well, maybe for your next book, you just put up, this is my next book, the end.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, that's number 2.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, everybody. Oh, I can't. I told you I can't speak today. Well, it's a little overtime, so
Jeez, yeah.
I think we should wrap it up. That hour flew by.
It certainly did.
Okay.
Thank you, Jacquelyn.
Thanks a lot, Jacquelyn.
Thank you so much, Jacquelyn.
Thank you, Jacquelyn. Good job.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
All right, everyone.
Happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day.
Bye-bye.
Is it like time for fireworks? Enjoy your fireworks if so. That's
Yeah,
That's
all
the
weekend
4th of
long I've been
July.
hearing. All weekend long I've been hearing fireworks going off. Going, why are they shooting off fireworks? I keep forgetting.
why not? All right, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jacqueline.